The big room was very quiet. Now Captain Dongmin Park stood still like a statue. His hands were tight behind his back. The alien judge looked at him with 6 scary eyes. The machine made clicking sounds as it changed the alien words into human words. The tall alien with the hard shell spoke in a cold voice. Your people called humans are guilty of being too violent and too dangerous. We, the 47 races of the Galactic Council, have decided you must leave our space. You have 72 hours to take all your people and ships and go away. Next to Park stood Ambassador Haijin Ko. She looked calm, but her hands were shaking a little. She held her datapad very tight. The other humans were there too. Commander Jinwoo Lee looked angry. Chief Engineer Biora Kim stared at the floor. Dr. Woo Sung Choi just shook his head. They all knew this would happen, but it still hurt to hear Aita. Tall crystal being spoke. Next, the humans love to fight too much. They turned a small problem into a big war. Their ships have weapons that can break planets. His voice made scary sounds that made the smaller aliens shake with fear. Park finally spoke. His voice was steady, but inside he was very angry that fights started when your mining ships attacked our farm worlds. We only protected ourselves, protected the tentacle. Alien moved his arms around angry. You destroyed 3 of our biggest warships with just 1 of your ships. Your fighting ways scared us. Our Choi stepped forward. He was a smart man who always tried to think of good answers. We have given you new medicine and new ways to grow food. We have given you technology to protect yourselves. Our work on making stars has helped everyone for hundreds of years. The main judge clicked his mouth. Parts in a mean way. We know what you have done, but your people are still the same. You build things and you destroy things. We cannot live with people who are so dangerous. Ambassador Ko had worked for many years to make friends with aliens from many worlds. Now she watched all her hard work fall apart. Where are we supposed to go? You are forcing our whole race to live alone in empty space. That is not something we care about, the judge said. Maybe being alone will teach your people to be less violent. The decision cannot be changed. When the meeting ended, Park looked around the big room one more time. Aliens from many different worlds would not look at him. They were afraid or happy, or both. The humans had been the newest members of the council. They had joined only 50 years ago after they learned to travel faster than light. Now they were being thrown out like dangerous animals. Commander Lee turned on his communication device. He was ready to tell the human ships waiting far away. All stations, this is Command Start Protocol 7. We have 72 hours moving. Everyone would be very hard. Human colonies were scattered across 12 star systems. Research stations, trading posts, and diplomatic missions would all have to be left behind. Millions of people would have to leave everything they had built among the stars. But as the human group got ready to leave, Park noticed something the alien council members had missed. His people were not broken by this decision. In their eyes he saw determination, anger, and something else, a spark of dangerous possibility. The council thought they were protecting themselves by throwing out humanity. They had no idea what they had just set free. The evacuation order went out to every human ship and station in council space. Captain Mi Young CEO was on the industrial world of New Bizan when the message came. She had been overseeing the construction of a new manufacturing plant. Now she would have to destroy it rather than let the aliens have. Either team of engineers worked fast to download all the important data and take apart the most valuable equipment. The irony was not lost on her. The same engineering skills that made the council fear humans were now their only hope for survival. Lieutenant Du Hyan Kim ran up to her. Captain, the council watchers are saying we have to leave the planetary defense system. They say it is too dangerous to move. SEO smiled, but it was not a nice smile. Tell them we will do what they want, but make sure the self-destruct bombs are ready. If they want our technology, they can have the hole in the ground it will make on the space station above New Seoul. Admiral Sung Ho Nam watched the last transport ships dock with the orbital platforms. The evacuation fleet was huge. 500 ships of every type formed the biggest moving convoy in the history of the galaxy operations. Officer Yeonru Park checked her screens. Colony evacuation is at 93%. The farming worlds are the hardest. The colonists do not want to leave their crops. They have no choice, Nam said sadly. The council enforcement fleets are already moving to block the borders. We have 18 hours before they reach the outer colonies. Dr. Sunmi Yoon, the fleet's chief scientist, came over with a worried look. Admiral, we are getting reports from the science stations. The Council has cut off our access to the Galactic Data Network's decades of research work gone in seconds. Nam was not surprised. The Council exile was not just about making them leave, it was about cutting them off from knowledge and culture. Humanity would be separated from the vast library of information that had helped them grow since joining the galactic community on the planet below. Captain SCO supervised the final evacuation of the industrial complex. Her engineers worked desperately to download manufacturing databases and take apart important equipment. The same adaptive engineering that the Council feared was now their lifeline. The evacuation showed the true size of human presence in Council space. What had started as a few colony ships 50 years ago had become a thriving interstellar civilization. Human merchants, scientists, engineers, and diplomats had woven themselves into the fabric of galactic society. Now that fabric was being torn apart. Engineer Jeho stood in the empty halls of Research Station Omega, where human and alien scientists had worked together to develop new forms of clean energy. The station's quantum reactors hummed with barely contained power. Soon alien teams would take over these labs. They would benefit from human innovations while the creators were banished to empty space. As the evacuation fleet prepared to leave, Admiral Nam called a meeting of the senior staff. The conference room of the ship Sejong was packed with humanity's brightest minds. Scientists, military officers, diplomats, and engineers who had shaped their species' brief but important membership. In the galactic community, we have a choice. Nam began, his old face showing the weight of command. We can go to the edge of the galaxy, find some isolated group of stars and try to rebuild what we have lost, or we can take a different path. Ambassador Ko, who had stayed with the fleet rather than face the shame of diplomatic recall, spoke up. The Council expects us to disappear quietly. They want to forget we ever existed, but we know things they do not. Dr. Choi added, his scientific mind already working through the implications. We have seen weaknesses in their technology, gaps in their defenses. 50 years of cooperation gave us access to their most closely guarded secrets. Commander Lee pulled up a holographic display showing the local galactic arm. The Council controls about 60% of habitable systems, but there are vast regions beyond their borders, areas they have marked as too dangerous or too poor in resources to explore. Dangerous how? Asked Dr. Yun. Ancient ruins, unstable star phenomena, and in some cases hostile species that even the Council fears to fight. Nam studied the map, his tactical mind already making plans. What the Council does not understand is that we have never been the aggressors. We have always been survivors. They think exile will weaken us, but they are wrong. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Council had intended to remove a threat, but they had instead created something far more dangerous, a united humanity with nothing left to lose, armed with advanced technology and intimate knowledge of galactic civilizations' weaknesses. As the last transport cleared the gravity well, Nam gave the order to jump. The human fleet vanished into hyperspace, carrying with it the hopes and dreams of an entire species behind them. Council enforcement vessels moved to secure the abandoned colonies, unaware that their greatest threat was no longer contained within their borders. The exile had begun, but so had something else, something that would shake the very foundations of galactic civilization. The Council thought they had solved their human problem. In reality, they had just created a much bigger one. The human fleet looked like a metal city floating in space. 500 ships of every size and shape formed the biggest moving group in galactic history. Admiral Sung-ho Nam stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Sejong, watching the final transport vessels dock with the space stations above. New Sol status report. He commanded, his voice carrying the weight of a man responsible for keeping his entire species. Alave Operations Officer Yanru Park looked at her displays. Colony evacuation at 93%. The agricultural worlds are proving most difficult. The colonists do not want to abandon their crops. They have no choice, Nam replied grimly. The Council enforcement fleets are already moving to seal the borders. We have 18 hours before they reach the outer colonies. Dr. Sun Mi-yoon, the fleet's chief xenobiologist, approached with a troubled expression. Admiral, we are receiving reports from the science stations. The Council has revoked our access to the galactic data networks. Decades of research collaboration gone in an instant. Nam was not surprised. The Council exile was not just physical. It was intellectual and cultural isolation. Humanity would be cut off from the vast repository of knowledge that had accelerated their development since joining the galactic community on the planet below. Captain Mi Young SCO supervised the final evacuation of the industrial complex. Her engineers worked frantically to download manufacturing databases and disassemble critical equipment. The irony was not lost on her. The same adaptive engineering that the Council feared was now their lifeline. Captain, her second-in-command, Lieutenant Du-Hyen Kim, reported over the com. The Council observers are demanding we leave the planetary defense grid intact. They say it is too dangerous to transport. Joe's smile was cold. Tell them we are complying, but make sure the self-destruct sequences are armed. If they want our technology, they can have the crater it leaves behind. The evacuation revealed the true scale of human presence in Council space. What had begun as a handful of colony ships 50 years ago had become a thriving interstellar civilization. Human merchants, scientists, engineers, and diplomats had woven themselves into the fabric of galactic society. Now that fabric was being torn apart. Engineer Jeho stood in the abandoned corridors of Research Station Omega, where human and alien scientists had worked together to develop new forms of clean energy. The station's quantum reactors hummed with barely contained power, a testament to human ingenuity adapted for galactic use. Soon alien teams would occupy these labs, benefiting from human innovations while the creators were banished to the void. As the evacuation fleet prepared to depart, Admiral Nam called a meeting of the senior staff. The conference room of the Sejong was packed with humanity's brightest minds, scientists, military officers, diplomats, and engineers who had shaped their species' brief but impactful membership in the galactic community. We have a choice. Nam began, his weathered face reflecting the weight of command. We can retreat to the galactic rim, find some isolated cluster of stars, and try to rebuild what we have lost, or we can take a different path. Ambassador Ko, who had remained with the fleet rather than face the humiliation of diplomatic recall, spoke up. The Council expects us to disappear quietly. They want to forget we ever existed, but we know things they do not. Dr. Choi added, his scientific mind already working through the implications. We have seen weaknesses in their technology, gaps in their defenses. 50 years of cooperation gave us access to their most closely guarded secrets. Commander Lee pulled up a holographic display showing the local galactic arm the Council controls. Approximately 60% of habitable systems, but there are vast regions beyond their borders. Areas they have marked as too dangerous or resource poor to explore. Dangerous how? Asked Dr. Yun. Ancient ruins, unstable stellar phenomena, and in some cases hostile species that even the Council fears to engage. Nam studied the map, his tactical mind already formulating plans. What the Council does not understand is that we have never been the aggressors. We have always been survivors. They think exile will weaken us, but they are wrong. The room fell silent as the implications sank, and the Council had intended to remove a threat, but they had instead created something far more dangerous, a united humanity with nothing left to lose, armed with advanced technology and intimate knowledge of galactic civilization's vulnerabilities. The massive convoy began its journey into the unknown. The lead ships entered hyperspace, first followed by the colony transports, and finally the rear guard of military vessels. Each jump took them further from everything they had built and closer to an uncertain future. Captain Byung-ho An commanded one of the scout ships ranging ahead of the main fleet. His job was to find safe routes through unexplored space and watch for Council pursuit. The sensors showed empty void ahead, but he knew that could change quickly. Scout leader, this is Fleet Command. Any signs of pursuit? Negative. Fleet Command An replied, checking his long-range scanners. The Council fleets are still securing our former colonies. They seem to think we will hide in the nearest star system and beg to come back. They do not know us very well, came the reply. As the fleet traveled deeper into uncharted space, strange things began to happen. The sensor readings showed stellar formations that did not match any known star charts. Ancient debris fields drifted between dead worlds, and space itself seemed to shimmer with odd energy patterns. Dr. Yun coordinated the scientific analysis from the mobile laboratory ship Galileo. The readings were unlike anything in human or Council databases. Energy signatures that defied known physics, gravitational anomalies that seemed to bend space itself, and most intriguing of all, artificial structures that predated known galactic civilization admiral. We are detecting something unusual, Dr. Yun reported to NAM. Structure ahead appears to be artificial, but the design is not consistent with any known species. NAM studied the sensor data. The object was massive, larger than any space station the Council had ever built, and it appeared to be constructed from materials that absorbed most forms of scanning. It hung in space like a metal mountain waiting in the darkness. Take us closer, but maintain full defensive posture, NAM ordered. If this is someone else's territory, we need to know before we intrude. As the fleet approached the mysterious structure, more details became visible. Elegant curves and geometric patterns suggested advanced engineering, but the design philosophy was completely alien. It was neither human nor Council technology, nor did it match any of the species humanity had encountered. The structure appeared to be abandoned. Its hull showed signs of great age, but no damage. Whoever built it had used materials that could withstand millennia of cosmic radiation and micrometeorite impacts without degradation. Captain SCO led the first exploration team aboard the Mystery Station. Her engineers were amazed by what they found: corridors wide enough for beings twice human height, chambers that could house entire cities, and most remarkably, technology that still functioned after unknown ages. The power source alone defied explanation. Energy readings suggested output levels that dwarfed anything in human or Council engineering, but the source appeared to be drawing power from the quantum vacuum itself. The builders had learned to extract energy from empty space. As the exploration continued, the teams made an even more startling discovery. Deep within the station's core, they found vast chambers filled with what appeared to be stasis pods, thousands of them arranged in perfect rows. Each pod contained a humanoid figure taller than humans, with elongated limbs and faces marked by intricate biological patterns. Dr. Choi examined the stasis systems with growing excitement. The technology is beyond our current understanding, but the life signs are stable. These beings have been sleeping for thousands of years, possibly tens of thousands. Who are they? Asked. None unknown, replied Dr. Choi. But their technology suggests a level of advancement that makes even Council science look primitive. If we could wake them, learn from them. The discovery changed everything. The exile that had seemed like a death sentence might actually be humanity's greatest opportunity. The ancient builders possessed knowledge that could revolutionize everything. Humanity thought they knew about technology and warfare, but first they had to make contact. And they had to hope that whatever had forced these advanced beings into eternal sleep was no longer a threat. The fleet had found shelter in the darkness between stars, but they had also found mysteries that might be more dangerous than anything the Council could throw at them. As teams continued to explore the vast station, Admiral Nam realized that their exile might not be the end of humanity's story. In the galaxy, it might be the beginning of something far greater and far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. The Council thought they had removed a threat by exiling humanity. In reality, they had driven their greatest potential allies into the arms of powers that could reshape the balance of galactic civilization. The question was whether humanity was ready for what they were about to unleash. 2 years after the first contact with the predecessors, the Hidden Alliance had grown into something the galaxy had never seen before. Deep within the Kepler void, the ancient station had been transformed into a bustling hub of activity where human ingenuity merged with predecessor technology in ways that defied conventional understanding. Captain Yoonji Song piloted her newly constructed vessel through the station expanded docking bays, marveling at the ships around her. The hybrid designs combined human tactical thinking with predecessor engineering, creating vessels that were simultaneously beautiful and terrifying. Her own ship, the Hongul, was barely 200 meters long, but packed enough firepower to match a Council dreadnought control. This is Song requesting permission to begin field trials. She reported to the Station Command Center. Permission granted, Captain, came the reply from operations. Officer Jae-min Choi, remember, we are testing the new stealth systems the Council has. Patrol fleets in the neighboring sectors. The Hongul slipped away from the station like a ghost, its hull reflecting space itself until it became virtually invisible. The stealth technology was a marriage of human electronic warfare techniques and predecessor dimensional manipulation. The ship did not just hide from sensors, it partially existed in a parallel dimension. Meanwhile, In the station's vast manufacturing complex, Chief Engineer Malya Kong supervised the production of the next generation of hybrid vessels. The automated systems were miraculously capable of assembling complex spacecraft from raw materials in a matter of days, but they required human oversight to prevent the rigid thinking that had ultimately doomed the original predecessor. Civilization. The problem with my people, Thane explained to a gathering of human engineers, was that we became too focused on perfection. Every system had to be flawless, every strategy had to be elegant. We lost the ability to adapt when our perfect plans failed. Dr. Bay nodded thoughtfully. Humans have the opposite problem. We are constantly adapting, sometimes to the point where we forget to plan properly. But together we might actually succeed. Thane finished. The awakening process had accelerated dramatically across the galaxy. Hidden predecessor installations were coming online as their ancient inhabitants emerged from millennia of sleep. Each awakening brought new knowledge, new technologies, and new perspectives on the coming threat. Dr. Shin had become the Alliance's primary liaison with the awakening predecessors. Her translation algorithms had evolved to handle the complex harmonic languages of dozens of predecessor subspecies, each with their own cultural and technological specializations. The Forge Keepers of the Andromeda Relay have confirmed activation, she reported to Admiral Nam. They are beginning production of the stellar engineering equipment we will need for the outer defense. Gridley's plan was ambitious. Even by predecessor standards, a network of modified stars would serve as early warning beacons and weapons platforms capable of detecting Devourer scouts across interstellar distances and responding with focused stellar flares. The technology existed, but implementing it required resources on a galactic scale. What about the Council? Nam asked. Are they still ignoring the science communications? Officer Eugene Park looked up from her monitoring station. They have increased border patrols, but they are treating it as a routine security matter. The public does not know about the lost colonies or the scout encounters. The Council's willful ignorance was both a blessing and a curse. It allowed the Alliance to operate in secret, but it also meant that when the truth finally emerged, the galaxy would be woefully unprepared. The predecessors had shared their historical records showing what happened to civilizations that ignored the signs of an approaching harvest. We need to accelerate the timeline. Nam decided. How many ships can we field if we strip the production schedules to the bone? Engineer Kang consulted her displays. If we focus on fast attack vessels and ignore the larger platforms, maybe 300 ships within 6 months. But they will be untested, and we will be pushing the manufacturing systems beyond their safety margins. Nam ordered. According to Thane calculations, we have maybe 2 years before the first major Devourer fleets arrive. We need to be ready. Alliance had grown beyond the original human fleet and awakening predecessors. Contact had been established with several species at the galactic rim races that had been dismissed by the Council as too primitive or too aggressive to warrant membership. These species had experienced firsthand the effects of Devourer scouts, and they were eager to join any force that promised to fight back. The Corvani, a warrior species that had been engaged in a centuries-long war with Devourer advance forces, brought tactical knowledge that complemented human adaptability. The Zephyrians, energy beings that existed partially in hyperspace, provided intelligence about Devourer movements between dimensions. The Titans, genetically enhanced descendants of an ancient slave race, offered their services as shock troops for the coming conflict. But perhaps the most significant addition to the Alliance came from an unexpected source. Dr. Yan Mi-ha, a xenobiologist who had been studying the recovered Devourer technology, made a discovery that changed everything. They are not just energy feeders, she announced to the Alliance leadership. They are information feeders. They consume the accumulated knowledge and culture of entire civilizations. Every species they have harvested has left traces in their technology. The implications were staggering. The Devourers were not just destroyers, they were thieves on a cosmic scale, stealing the achievements of countless civilizations and using that knowledge to become stronger. But if they stored information, that information might be recoverable. You are suggesting we could rescue the harvested civilizations? Thane asked, his harmonic voice carrying undertones of hope that the translation system barely captured. Not rescue. Dr. Corrected, resurrect, their knowledge, their cultures, their very identities exist within the Devourer network if we can access it. The meeting fell silent as the possibility sank in the coming war would not just be about survival, it would be about resurrection on a galactic scale. The stakes had just become higher than anyone had imagined as the Alliance prepared for the inevitable confrontation. Scouts reported disturbing news from the galactic rim. Entire star systems were going dark. Council border patrols were disappearing, and space itself seemed to be warping in ways that violated known physics. The signs that the predecessors had warned about were becoming impossible to ignore. Admiral Nam stood in the station command center watching tactical displays that showed the growing scope of the threat. The Devourer advanced scouts were probing deeper into Council space, testing defenses and gathering intelligence. Soon the main harvest fleets would follow the Council. "We'll never be ready for this," he said to Thane, who stood beside him monitoring the same displays. "No," Thane replied, "but perhaps that is for the best. Their rigid thinking would only make them easier targets. We have something they do not." "What is that?" Nam asked. Hope Thane's voice carried harmonics of ancient determination. "For the first time in 50,000 years, we have a plan that might actually work. Your species brings chaos to order, adaptation to perfection. That might be exactly what we need to break the cycle." The Alliance fleet was growing daily as new ships rolled out of the hybrid manufacturing facilities. Each vessel was a testament to the marriage of human innovation and predecessor technology. They were faster than anything the Council had ever built, more heavily armed and capable of tactics that would have been impossible with conventional vessels. But the real strength of the Alliance lay not in its ships but in its people. Humans who had been exiled as too dangerous had become the leaders of a coalition that spanned the galaxy. Former enemies had become allies, united by the common threat of extinction. As the final preparations began, Admiral Nam reflected on the irony of their situation. The Council had exiled humanity to protect galactic stability. Instead, they had created the very force that would either save the galaxy or die trying. The question was whether they would recognize their mistake before it was too late. The harvest was coming, but for the first time in eons, the prey was ready to become the hunter. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when humanity was given the tools to fight on equal terms. The Devourers had never faced an enemy like this one. Soon they would learn that some species did not go quietly into extinction. Some fought back, and some were dangerous enough to make their enemies regret awakening them. The exile was over. The real war was about to begin. 6 months after the Exodus, the human fleet had established a temporary base in the Kepler Void, a region of space so remote that even the Council long-range sensors could not penetrate its natural interference fields. What they found there defied all expectations. Dr. Hyung Shin stood before a massive holographic display showing the ruins of an ancient space station. The structure was clearly artificial, but its design followed principles that no known species had ever employed. "It is at least 10,000 years old," she reported to the assembled council of human leaders. "The materials are unlike anything in our databases." Admiral Nam studied the readings with growing excitement. The station was enormous, larger than any human or council installation, and appeared to be constructed from a self-repairing metallic substance that had withstood millennia of cosmic radiation and micrometeorite impacts. "What about the power source?" asked Chief Engineer Kyung Soo Bae. "That is the remarkable part," Dr. Shin replied. "It is still active. The energy output is beyond our ability to measure, but it is stable and appears to be drawing power from quantum fluctuations in space itself." The discovery had come at a crucial moment. The human fleet resources were depleting rapidly, and the stress of maintaining hundreds of ships in deep space was taking its toll. The ancient station offered not just shelter, but possibilities that no one had dared to imagine. Commander Insu Park, the Admiral nephew and head of the Exploration Division, had spent weeks mapping the station interior. "It is like a city," he reported, "vast chambers that could house our entire population, manufacturing facilities that operate on principles we do not understand, and archives, massive data storage systems that we have barely begun to explore." Dr. Choi, now serving as the Fleet Chief Technology Officer, had made the most startling discovery. The station builders were not just advanced, they were preparing for something. War. Maybe, or some other catastrophic event. The manufacturing facilities are designed to produce ships and weapons on a scale that dwarfs anything the Council has ever built. The archives were slowly yielding their secrets to human translation algorithms. The station builders called themselves the predecessors, and their records painted a picture of a galactic civilization that had once spanned thousands of star systems. They had been, by all accounts, peaceful explorers and scientists until something had forced them to become warriors. They faced an enemy that consumed entire species. Dr. Shin translated from the ancient records. Something that could not be reasoned with or defeated through conventional means. The predecessors' final entries mention a great culling that scattered their people across the galaxy. Minister of Colonial Affairs Young Su Lim raised the question that everyone was thinking: what happened to them? If they were so advanced, why did they abandon this place? They did not abandon it, Dr. Choi replied grimly. They are still here. The revelation sent shockwaves through the human leadership. Deep within the station core, the exploration teams had discovered stasis chambers containing thousands of predecessor survivors. The beings were humanoid but taller, with elongated limbs and faces marked by intricate biological patterns. They had been sleeping for millennia, waiting for the right conditions to awaken. Their automatic systems have been monitoring galactic communications, explained Dr. Shin. They have been learning about the current state of the galaxy, and they have been specifically watching humanity development. Admiral Nam felt the weight of destiny settling on his shoulders. They were waiting for us, not specifically, but for a species like us, one that combines technological advancement with what they call adaptive aggression. They believe humanity might be the key to finally defeating their ancient enemy. The implications were staggering. The predecessors possessed technology that could revolutionize warfare, but they lacked the tactical flexibility and aggressive innovation that had made humans so feared by the Council. In return, humanity would gain access to weapons and knowledge that could reshape the galaxy. But first, they had to make contact. The awakening process was delicate, requiring precise environmental conditions and careful preparation. Dr. Yoon led the team responsible for bringing the first predecessor out of stasis, a being whose translated name meant keeper of final measures. The awakening chamber hummed with energy as ancient systems came online after millennia of dormancy. The human team worked carefully, following procedures that had been dormant since before their species had discovered fire. Atmospheric processors created the exact gas mixture required. Neural stimulators began the delicate process of reactivating a mind that had slept through the rise and fall of civilizations. As the stasis pod slowly opened, releasing wisps of preservation gas, the human team held their breath. The first predecessor to awaken in 10,000 years would either be humanity's salvation or their doom. The being inside was tall and graceful, with silver markings on pale skin that seemed to shift in the light. His eyes opened slowly, focusing on the strange faces surrounding his pod. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that the translation system struggled to interpret. So the young hunters have found us at last. The words sent chills through the human team. This ancient being had been expecting them, had been waiting for a species like humanity to find this place. The predecessors had not just prepared for war, they had prepared for allies. Dar Shin stepped forward, her translation equipment recording every nuance of the encounter. We are human explorers. We found your station and learned of your history. We seek knowledge and perhaps alliance. The predecessor, who called himself Thane, slowly sat up in his pod, studying the humans with ancient eyes. Your species intrigues us. In 50 years among the Council races, you accomplished more than most species manage in centuries. Admiral Nam had chosen his words carefully for this historic meeting. We are fast learners, but the Council saw that as a threat. The Council Thane expression showed what might have been amusement. They are children playing with forces they do not understand. We watched their formation 3,000 years ago, hoping they might develop the strength to face what is coming. Instead, they chose comfort over growth. Dr. Shin activated her recording devices, knowing that this conversation would be studied by human historians for generations. You mentioned an enemy in your records. What exactly are we facing? Demeanor shifted, becoming more serious. They have no name in any language still spoken. We called them the Devourers. They exist in the spaces between galaxies, feeding on the energy of living civilizations. Every 50,000 years they return. To harvest, the human delegation exchanged glances. The time frame was almost incomprehensible, but the implications were clear. The galaxy was not just home to competing species, it was a feeding ground for something far more ancient and dangerous. How long until they return? Asked Commander Liar. Calculations suggest less than a century. Thane replied, perhaps much less. The signs are already appearing. Dead systems along the galactic rim, space-time distortions that grow stronger each year. The revelation explains so much about the Council's recent behavior, their increasing paranoia, their willingness to exile humanity despite the benefits of cooperation, their focus on internal security rather than exploration. They were preparing for something they could not publicly acknowledge. What do you propose? Nam asked. Thane gestured to displays showing the ancient station manufacturing facilities. We propose an alliance. Your species possesses something our people lost long ago, the ability to adapt and innovate under pressure. Our technology combined with your tactical creativity might be enough to do what we failed to accomplish 10,000 years ago. The offer was beyond anything humanity had dared hope for. Access to technology that could span galaxies, weapons that operated on principles beyond current understanding, and allies who had been preparing for this war since before human civilization began. But it would require trust between species separated by eons of time. It would require humanity to accept responsibilities on a galactic scale, and it would require them to prepare for a war against enemies that had been harvesting civilizations since before Earth had developed complex life. The Council exile of humanity had been intended to maintain galactic stability. Instead, it had created the alliance that might be the galaxy's only hope for survival. The first meeting between humanity and the predecessors took place in the station central chamber, a vast space dominated by a holographic display showing the entire galaxy. The keeper, whose actual name was a complex harmonic pattern that humans rendered as Thane, stood nearly 3 meters tall, his silver-marked skin reflecting the displayed light. Your species intrigues us, Thane said, his voice carrying overtones that the translation system rendered as subtle emphasis. In 50 years among the Council races you accomplished more than most species manage in centuries. Admiral Nam had chosen his words carefully for this historic meeting. We are fast learners, but the Council saw that as a threat. The Council Thane expression showed something that might have been amusement. They are children playing with forces they do not understand. We watched their formation 3,000 years ago, hoping they might develop the strength to face what is coming. Instead, they chose comfort over growth. Dr. Shin activated her recording devices, knowing that this conversation would be studied by human historians for generations. You mentioned an enemy in your records. What exactly are we facing? Thane demeanor shifted, becoming more serious. They have no name in any language still spoken. We call them the Devourers. They exist in the spaces between galaxies, feeding on the energy of living civilizations. Every 50,000 years they return to harvest. The human delegation exchanged glances. The time frame was almost incomprehensible, but the implications were clear. The galaxy was not just home to competing species. It was a feeding ground for something far more ancient and dangerous. How long until they return? Asked Commander Liar. Calculations suggest less than a century. Thane replied, perhaps much less. The signs are already appearing. Dead systems along the galactic rim, space-time distortions that grow stronger each year. Minister Lim leaned forward. What kind of signs? We have been monitoring galactic communications, but there have not been any reports of unusual phenomena. The Council suppresses such information, Thane explained. They fear panic more than they fear the truth, but their border patrols have encountered scout probes. Several outer colonies have gone silent. The harvest has already begun. The revelation explained so much about the Council's recent behavior, their increasing paranoia, their willingness to exile humanity despite the benefits of cooperation, their focus on internal security rather than exploration. They were preparing for something they could not publicly acknowledge. So, what do you propose? Nam asked. Thane gestured to the holographic display, and the view shifted to show the ancient station manufacturing facilities. We propose an alliance. Your species possesses something our people lost long ago, the ability to adapt and innovate under pressure. Our technology combined with your tactical creativity might be enough to do what we failed to accomplish 10,000 years ago. HFY studied the technical specifications that began flowing across the display. Ships that could cross the galaxy in days rather than weeks, weapons that could destabilize stars, defensive systems that operated on principles beyond current human understanding. What exactly did you fail to accomplish? We tried to fight them in space using conventional warfare. Even with our advanced technology, we could not match their numbers or their ability to convert our own weapons against US. This time we propose a different approach. The display showed a network of installations scattered across the galaxy, ancient predecessor bases hidden in asteroid fields, gas giant atmospheres, and the hearts of stellar nurseries. Each one was a potential staging ground for the coming conflict. You want to wake up your entire civilization. Nam realized not all of them. Thane corrected. Many were lost in the First War, but there are enough, perhaps 1 million of my people in stasis across the galaxy. With human leadership and predecessor technology, we could build a force capable of not just defending this galaxy, but carrying the fight to the Devourer's home dimension. The proposal was ambitious beyond imagination. It would require decades of preparation, the awakening of an ancient civilization, and the creation of an alliance that spanned species and millennia. But for the first time since their exile, the humans saw a path that led not just to survival, but to victory. There is one problem, Ambassador Ko pointed out. The Council will never accept this. They will see a human predecessor alliance as a threat to their authority. Thane expression carried what the translation system rendered as grim satisfaction. The Council authority ends where our technology begins. They exiled you because they feared your potential. Wait until they see what you can accomplish with proper resources. Over the following months, the Alliance took shape. Predecessor awakening chambers across the galaxy began to activate as ancient protocols recognized the emergence of suitable allies. The humans provided tactical innovation and adaptive thinking, while the predecessors shared technology that had been refined over millions of years. Captain Unji Song was among the first humans to pilot a hybrid vessel that combined human engineering with predecessor technology. The ship, called Hangul, was barely 200 meters long, but its weapon systems could destroy a Council dreadnought, and its defensive capabilities made it nearly invisible to conventional sensors. The manufacturing capabilities of the ancient station were beyond anything humanity had imagined. Ships that would take human shipyards months to build were completed in days. The fusion of technologies created vessels that neither species could have developed alone, but the Alliance faced challenges that went beyond technology. The predecessors had become rigid in their thinking. Over millennia of preparation, they had perfect plans for every contingency, but they struggled to adapt. When those plans failed, humans excelled at improvisation, but sometimes lacked the patience for long-term strategic thinking. Chief Engineer Malya Kong worked with predecessor technical specialists to bridge the gap between their different approaches. The automated systems are miraculous, she reported to Admiral Nam, but they require human oversight to prevent the rigid thinking that ultimately doomed the original predecessor civilizations. Problem with my people, Thane explained to a gathering of human engineers, was that we became too focused on perfection. Every system had to be flawless, every strategy had to be elegant. We lost the ability to adapt when our perfect plans failed. Dr. Bay nodded thoughtfully. Humans have the opposite problem. We are constantly adapting, sometimes to the point where we forget to plan properly. But together we might actually succeed. Thane finished. The awakening process had accelerated dramatically. Across the galaxy, hidden predecessor installations were coming online as their ancient inhabitants emerged from millennia of sleep. Each awakening brought new knowledge, new technologies, and new perspectives on the coming threat. Dr. Shin had become the Alliance primary liaison with the awakening predecessors. Her translation algorithms had evolved to handle the complex harmonic languages of dozens of predecessor subspecies, each with their own cultural and technological specializations. The Forge Keepers of the Andromeda Relay have confirmed activation, she reported to Admiral Nam. They are beginning production of the stellar engineering equipment we will need for the outer defense grid. The plan was ambitious even by predecessor standards. A network of modified stars would serve as early warning beacons and weapons. Platforms capable of detecting Devourer scouts across interstellar distances and responding with focused stellar flares. The technology existed, but implementing it required resources on a galactic scale. What about the Council? Nam asked. Are they still ignoring the signs? Communications Officer Eugene Park looked up from her monitoring station. They have increased border patrols, but they are treating it as a routine security matter. The public does not know about the lost colonies or the scout encounters. The Council's willful ignorance was both a blessing and a curse. It allowed the Alliance to operate in secret. But it also meant that when the truth finally emerged, the galaxy would be woefully unprepared. The predecessors had shared their historical records showing what happened to civilizations that ignored the signs of an approaching harvest. We need to accelerate the timeline. Nam decided how many ships can we field if we strip the production schedules to the bone? Engineer Kong consulted her displays. If we focus on fast attack vessels and ignore the larger platforms, maybe 300 ships within 6 months. But they will be untested, and we will be pushing the manufacturing systems beyond their safety margins. Do it, Nam ordered. According to Thane calculations, we have maybe 2 years before the first major Devourer fleets arrive. We need to be ready. The Alliance had grown beyond the original human fleet and awakening predecessors. Contact had been established with several species at the galactic rim races that had been dismissed by the Council as too primitive or too aggressive to warrant membership. These species had experienced firsthand the effects of Devourer scouts, and they were eager to join any force that promised to fight back. But the most significant discovery came from an unexpected source. Dr. Yan Mi, a xenobiologist who had been studying recovered Devourer technology, made a breakthrough that changed everything. They are not just energy feeders, she announced to the Alliance leadership. They are information feeders. They consume the accumulated knowledge and culture of entire civilizations. Every species they have harvested has left traces in their technology. The implications were staggering. The Devourers were not just destroyers, they were thieves. On the first sign that the galaxy ignorance was about to end came from an unexpected source. Council Defense Fleet Admiral Veltar, a veteran Quintar officer who had served for over 3 centuries, stared at the sensor readings with mounting horror. His flagship, the Unconcordant Voice, had been dispatched to investigate the loss of communication with the Outer Rim territories. What he found defied explanation. The Kepler 7 system, home to 4 billion Council citizens, was simply gone, not destroyed. Gone. The star remained, but every planet, every space station, every artificial construct had vanished without a trace. Send a priority message to the High Council. Veltar ordered, his tentacles trembling with suppressed fear. Classification: Galactic Emergency. We have encountered evidence of an unknown force capable of planetary-scale destruction. The message reached the Council chambers just as they were concluding a routine debate about trade regulations. High Arbiter Vexthal read the report 3 times before the implications sank in. The careful isolation that had protected the Council citizens from panic was about to collapse. 12 light-years away, aboard the human vessel Sejong, Admiral Nam received the same intelligence through very different channels. The predecessor monitoring stations had detected the Devourer harvest fleet the moment it emerged from interdimensional space, and the Alliance had watched helplessly as an entire system was consumed. It is beginning, Thane announced, his harmonic voice carrying the weight of 10,000 years of preparation. The advanced fleets have finished their reconnaissance. The main harvest will begin within days. The Alliance had grown to encompass over 200 species, from the exiled humans to the awakened predecessors to the rim-world civilizations that had been fighting this war for generations. Their combined fleet numbered in the tens of thousands, armed with weapons that merged human creativity with predecessor technology, empowered by the desperate courage of species that had nothing left to lose. Status of the stellar defense grid, Nam asked. Chief Engineer Kong consulted her displays. 63% complete. The automated systems are working around the clock, but we needed another year to finish the network. We do not have another year, Nam replied grimly. What about the Council? Are they finally taking this seriously? Communications Officer Park shook her head. They are still treating it as a localized threat. Admiral Veltar fleet has been reinforced, but they are operating under the assumption that they are dealing with a rogue species. Not a galactic extinction event. The irony was not lost on anyone in the room, the council that had exiled humanity. For being too dangerous was about to face a threat that would make human aggression look like a minor diplomatic incident. The question was whether they would accept help from the alliance they had created through their own short-sightedness. R. Shin looked up from her translation console. We are receiving a message from the Devourer fleet. It is in perfect council standard. The message that appeared on the main display was chilling in its casual tone. Greetings, current dominant species. We are the Harvest Fleet designation 77 Alpha. Your civilization has reached optimal maturity for processing. Please maintain current population levels and cease all military preparations. Compliance will result in a more efficient harvest. Council response was predictable. Within hours, every available military vessel was mobilized to meet the threat. The great fleets that had maintained galactic peace for millennia prepared for the largest battle in recorded history. It would also be the most one-sided. They are going to be slaughtered, observed Commander Lee, watching the tactical displays as Council forces moved into position. Yes, Thane agreed, but their sacrifice will buy us time. The Devourers will focus on the largest concentration of resistance. First, we can use that opportunity to implement the final phase of our plan. The final phase was audacious even by Alliance standards. Rather than trying to defend the galaxy, they would go on the offensive. The combined human predecessor fleet would strike at the Devourer command ship, attempting to access the vast information network that Dr. Ha had discovered. If successful, they could not only cripple the Harvest fleet, but potentially resurrect the countless civilizations that had been consumed over the millennia. All ships, this is Admiral Nam, he announced over the Alliance communication network. Operation Resurrection begins in 6 hours. Remember, we are not just fighting for our survival, we are fighting for every species that has ever been harvested, every civilization that has ever been silenced. Today, we prove that the galaxy exiles have become its salvation. The human vessels form the spearhead of the assault, their hybrid designs allowing them to punch through Devourer defenses with unprecedented speed and ferocity. Behind them came the awakened predecessor dreadnoughts, their ancient weapon systems modified with human tactical innovations. The Rimworld species provided support and diversionary attacks, their diverse technologies creating chaos in the Devourer formation. Captain Song pushed the Hangul to its limits, the hybrid vessel dancing between Devourer energy beams while its weapons tore through their defensive screens. The stealth systems allowed her to appear and disappear at will, striking from impossible angles and vanishing before return. Fire could target her. This is what we were made for, she thought as her ship wove through the battle space. The Council had feared human unpredictability, but against an enemy like this, unpredictability was their greatest weapon. The battle raged across multiple star systems as Devourer reinforcements poured through dimensional rifts. The Alliance fleet fought with desperate determination, knowing that failure meant not just death but the complete erasure of their civilizations from existence. But the most important part of the mission fell to a single ship. Dr. Ha, accompanied by a team of human hackers and predecessor data archaeologists, would attempt to penetrate the Devourer information network from within their command vessel. It was a suicide mission with the potential to resurrect an entire galaxy worth of lost civilizations. Her transport ship approached the massive Devourer command vessel. Dr. Ha felt the weight of history pressing down on her. Somewhere within that alien structure lay the accumulated knowledge of thousands of harvested species, the hopes and dreams of civilizations that had been silenced eons ago. The insertion team fought their way through the command ship interior, battling Devourer drones that seemed to anticipate their every move. The enemy had learned from countless conquered species, but they had never faced the chaotic adaptability of human tactics combined with predecessor technology. We are at the central processing core, Dr. Ha reported as her team reached the heart of the vessel. The data storage systems are beyond anything we have ever seen. The Devourer information network was vast beyond comprehension, petabytes of stolen knowledge stretching back millions of years. Every harvested species had left their mark in this digital graveyard of civilizations. But if Dr. Ha was right, all of that knowledge could be recovered. The human hackers worked frantically to establish connection protocols while Predecessor data specialists translated alien information architectures. Around them, the battle continued to rage as the Alliance fleet held back waves of Devourer reinforcements. "I have access," Dr. Ha announced, her voice filled with wonder and terror. "We are connected to the memories of 1,000,000 dead civilizations." The data that flowed through her systems was overwhelming: art, music, philosophy, science, technology, all of it preserved. In perfect digital form, the Devourers had not just consumed these civilizations, they had cataloged them, stored them, turned them into a vast library of stolen achievements. But something else was in the network, something the Devourers had not expected. The consciousness patterns of the harvested species were not just stored, they were active. Millions of digital ghosts waiting for someone to give them voice again. "This is Admiral Nam to all Alliance vessels. We have penetrated the Devourer network. Dr. Ha team is attempting to reverse the harvest process. If they succeed, we may be able to restore not just the data, but the actual consciousness of every species. The Devourers have ever consumed." The revelation sent shockwaves through the Alliance fleet. The mission was no longer about defeating the Devourers, it was about undoing 50,000 years of genocide. The digital resurrection of entire civilizations was within their grasp as Dr. Ha worked to activate the restoration protocols. The Devourer command ship began to convulse. The ancient systems were not designed to operate in reverse. The network that had stored the harvested civilizations was beginning to break down, releasing energy patterns that defied known physics. The process is destabilizing the entire fleet, Dr. Ha reported. The Devourers are losing control of their own technology across the battle space. Devourer vessels began to malfunction as their stolen knowledge turned against them. The network that had made them invincible was becoming their weakness. Ships that had conquered galaxies were tearing themselves apart as the consciousness of their victims fought back. The Alliance watched in amazement as the tide of battle turned. The Devourers, who had seemed unstoppable, were retreating into dimensional space, their harvest fleet in chaos, but the victory came at a cost. The data restoration process was consuming enormous amounts of energy. "We cannot maintain this for long," Dr. Ha warned. "The system overload will destroy the command ship and everyone on it." "Then we better make it count," Nam replied. "All ships concentrate fire on the remaining Dev